was the Son of God. Mark continues this fantastic story, because then he tells us that this Joseph of Arimathea, who is a member of the council, my friends, the council is the Sanhedrin. The council is the group of 70 men who condemned Jesus to die. Joseph of Arimathea, in Mark's gospel, is a member of that council. And it is he who comes to Pilate, who stands before the governor, the procurator, and says, I would like to claim the body of Jesus. Would you give it to me? Give it into my care? And the details of this, Mark is very funny. He has a lot of detail here. And the reason he has a lot of detail in his death story is because there were a lot of people who claimed that Jesus didn't in fact die. So Mark is telling this story with a lot more detail. And he says, well, I got to be sure he's dead. So Pilate sends for the centurion. So the centurion, I can't imagine what he's thinking, has to go and appear before Pilate, hoping Pilate didn't hear what he said. And the centurion is asked, is Jesus dead? Because Pilate doesn't believe it. Can't be dead already. It's only been a few hours. It takes much longer to die on a cross. The centurion says to Pilate, yes, he is most certainly dead and has been for some time. And in that moment, Pilate allows Joseph of Arimathea to go and claim the body. Now hear me on this. This member of the Sanhedrin stops on his way and buys a clean linen cloth, a new one, and he takes it with him to the hill at Golgotha. And this Joseph, this member of the Sanhedrin, takes Jesus off the cross, carries Jesus himself to the tomb, wraps Jesus himself in the linen, and lays him in the tomb. This Joseph of Arimathea is a paradox. This Joseph of Arimathea, who condemned him to die, is suddenly a loyal follower who has somehow been transformed by watching, by knowing, by encountering this Jesus. Joseph himself takes and places the stone over the tomb, and he is witnessed by the three women, Mary, Salome, and Mary. 36 hours later, Mary, Salome, and Mary have brought spices that they will bring to anoint the dead body of Jesus. When they get to the tomb, the stone is rolled away. And all I can think is that, well, maybe they're saying, well, maybe Joseph got here before us and he rolled the stone away. But when they enter, without thinking, perhaps just walk right in, there's no Jesus, there's no corpse, there's no dead body, there's just this young man dressed in a white robe sitting on the right side, I don't know why Mark has to have that detail, on the right side of the tomb. And the women, I'm just wondering if they just ran outside to check the address on the tomb, to be sure they had the right one. And, this can't be the right one. What happened here? What are you doing here? Who are you anyway? Before they have a chance to speak or react, the young man says, I know you're looking for Jesus. Jesus of Nazareth, the one who was crucified. But he has been raised. He's not here. And this is what I want you to do. I want you to go and tell all the other disciples and Peter, don't forget Peter, the one who denied Jesus, don't forget him, make sure he hears this, that Jesus is going before you as he told you to Galilee, and he will see you there. But the women were so terrified, they said nothing. And all we can wonder is, Well, you know, did they spill the beans in a counseling session later on? Did they call in, you know, the mentalist, some forensic psychologist to hypnotize them so that they could tell a story? And some of you are going to say, well, women can never keep secrets anyway. Why does Mark tell the story this way? Mark tells the story that is an unfinished story. And you're going to all say to me, well, how come you're not reading verses 9 through 20? Because they're an addition. They weren't written by Mark. They were somebody who wanted the resurrection story tied up in a neat little Easter bow to hand to everybody. But Mark doesn't tie the Easter story up in a nice little, neat little bow. He leaves the tomb wide open. And they're the only witnesses to this resurrection, people, are you and me. We've been kept in the loop by Mark this whole time. Mark has kept us in the loop from the very beginning. You and I were there when Mark said, this is the story of the good news about Jesus Christ, the Son of God. We were there. We were witnesses when God tore open the heavens and said, this is my Son, the beloved one, with whom I am well pleased. You and I were witnesses when God's cloud descended over Jesus and transfigured him on the mountain and said, this is my Son. Listen to him. You and I were there. We were witnesses when God tore the temple veil in half. The 8-ton temple veil ripped it wide open as Jesus gave up the Spirit and gave up his life and revealed God to us in a way that God had never been revealed. You and I were there. We were the witnesses. And you and I were there when the tomb was torn open. We saw the tomb open wide. And that's what this story is. That's what Mark's story is. It is an open-ended story, like the open tomb. And it asks you to tell your story, to add your story of expectation at the end of Mark's story. There's room for your story. Room for your story of the resurrection. Room for your story of transformation in your relationship with Jesus Christ. So lest anybody tell you they don't like Mark, they don't like the fact that it doesn't have a clean ending, grasp it and embrace the open ending that is open to you, the witnesses, and dare to proclaim the good news. He has been